in the world. Really excited to have you here today. Joining us on Thinkific Live, we've got a course creator spotlight, but also an expert spotlight all at the same time. Morning, 2-for-1 going on here. So really excited to have our guest here today with us, Pete Vargas, and he's going to be talking about some of the things that he's doing, about his courses as well. We're going to ask him, we're going to grill him, and it's going to be a really awesome session. So if you are joining us live, let us know, say hello in the comments. Also, this is a conversation, so make sure that you are putting in your questions in the comments as well. We want to make sure that we answer them for you. It's a great time to get all those questions out that you've been really wondering about, whether it's creating courses, marketing courses, anything like that. Anything that Pete talks about as well, feel free to ask questions about it. We've got him here for the next little while, so let's make the most of it. And I'm going to bring him on here now and say hello. Hey, Pete, how's it going? There you go. Hey, Pete. Sorry, you were just on mute there. How's it going?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for hanging out with us for the next little bunch of minutes. Before we get started, just say a few words about who you are, what you do, and where you're at today.
Yeah, my name is Pete Vargas. I'm actually in Colorado Springs, Colorado, out here with my family, my wife, Kim, for 17 years and 4 kiddos. We just had our fourth kiddo 7 months ago, and I am the founder of Advance Your Reach. And we believe stages, both digital and physical stages, are one of the fastest ways to get your message out to the world and one of the quickest ways to grow your business as well. And so we've been helping entrepreneurs understand how to use stages in a powerful way so that, you know, their courses and their programs, people want to engage and go deeper with them in those things. And so we've booked 25,000 stages across the world the last 15 years, big, small, digital, physical. And yeah, man, that's what we do. And we love it. And we're on a mission to help entrepreneurs get on 1 million stages by 2027.
1 million stages by 2027. That's amazing. Yeah, no, you guys are well on your way. Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's good to hear that you have, you know, just such an awesome mission. And I think everybody that is, you know, creating courses, I think it's natural to, you know, as part of the marketing to eventually, and even growth, to start sharing that message, that knowledge on stage. So it's really good to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about your backstory. How did you get into speaking and being a business strategist and helping these entrepreneurs to get on stages?
Yeah, so I was a youth pastor in Hereford, Texas, and I would bring all these speakers in to come speak to my kids because I was afraid to be the one to speak because of I was overweight and had body images and self-consciously didn't want to be the one on stage, but I also wanted to grow this youth group. So I started bringing all these speakers in to come speak to my kids. I'd bring in financial advisors and CEOs, health and wellness experts, stay-at-home moms, stay-at-home dads. I'd bring in musicians, I'd bring in creatives, and the key to all of them being brought in was every single time I'd bring a speaker in, my youth group would grow. Like literally, I was in this small little West Texas town. My first Wednesday night, there were 3 kids there. And over the course of my 4 years, every time I would bring in a speaker, my youth group would grow. And it grew from 3 kids to 800 kids in 4 short years in a town of 15,000 people. The cool part for everybody watching is I believe every time that you get on a stage and you speak, your business will grow. I really believe that with my whole heart because I've seen the impact that stages have had. And so what happened, Rob, was one of the speakers that I brought in. His daughter was the first girl killed at Columbine back in 1999. He was like the 20th speaker that I had brought in. One of my mentors told me to bring him in. He called me and said, Pete, you got to bring Daryl in. And I said, Daryl who? And a lot of the times entrepreneurs who know we have this powerful message for the world, a lot of the times that's what we feel like. People don't know who we are. Like we feel like the best kept secret. If the world just knew the genius that we had to offer them, we could change the world. And that was the case with this man. He had something. His daughter had left him with 6 diaries and a paper called My Ethics, My Codes of Life that she wrote 1 month before she was killed at Columbine. And my mentor said, you've got to bring him in. He's like the best kept secret and he will rock your kids. He will literally rock your kids. And so I brought him in, about the 20th speaker that I brought into my youth group. And what happened was, he made a big impact on my kids and my youth group grew after he was there. But my dad heard him at an evening event And Daryl at the evening event said, and by the way, my grandmother had taken me away from my father when I was in 6th grade because of the things that he was doing to me as a little kid, just the abusive dad that he was. And now you fast forward I'm 23 years old now, and he hasn't ever said he was sorry or told me how much he loves me. And I had been looking for that, in that last decade, but never gotten it from my dad. Now my dad's in the audience. I had tried a lot of things over the years to make things right with him. He's sitting there. And this man, Daryl Scott, says on April 20th, 1999, had no idea that was going to be the last day I saw my daughter. And he said, parents, you have no idea how long you have left here with your kids. And he said, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to tell your kids how much you love them. You look them in the eyes and you tell them how much you love them. And if you have to call them and tell them that. And he said, some of you parents in here, I really want to challenge you to actually go ask your kids for forgiveness, because there's some of you that feel like you need to go ask for their forgiveness for something you've done. And I thought to myself, he goes on to say, the hardest thing for me to do was to forgive those 2 killers that day who took my daughter's life, those 2 boys who took my daughter's life. But it was the most freeing thing that I ever did. And so my dad went home, he wrote me a letter, and he basically said, I'm sorry for the father I've been. Here, my son is having an impact on hundreds of kids' lives, and I can't have an impact on my only son's life. I'm asking you for a second chance to do things right. And he told me for the first time in a long time that he loved me. And as my wife and I read that letter, I just began to cry, and she cried. And it was like, oh my gosh. And I just thought, like, what just happened? And the only thing I could think about was this stage in 1 hour did something for my dad that nothing else we had tried could do. And that's the power that we find in stages for a lot of people out there that are trying a lot of bright, shiny object syndrome things to sell more of their courses. And if they just got on a stage in an hour, no longer would they be the best kept secret. They would be the authority, the person who people look to as they taught and as they teach. The people in the audience are going to want to go deeper with them. And so I got to experience that day with my dad. My dad's literally doing what the man called him to do, the call to action. He said, go tell your kids you're sorry. My dad just chose to write it to me. And so I solicited that man's number, said, why aren't you getting your message out there on a bigger scale? And he said, I'm trying a lot of things, just like so many entrepreneurs do. But he's like, I'm just not seeing traction in any of them. And so I said, why don't you get on a stage in front of your ideal customers, serve them with a powerful message, like give them everything you can, and watch how many of them are going to want to bring your school program back to the schools, because he wanted to change the school system. And so the cool thing was, he goes, what program? I'm like, well, we'll figure that out. Don't worry. We'll figure out what our school program is. He had some pieces of it, but he didn't have the whole thing. And so we went out and we did really 3 core things for him. And this is what I want people to see today. The first thing is I said, let's get really clear on the message and the talk that you want to take to them. That's really going to inspire them to want to go deeper. So we got really clear on that talk. Then I went out and I booked the first stage. I started calling and emailing and doing a lot of things. And everybody was like asking me, who is this person? Who is this person? And all of a sudden I figured out how to overcome the who is this person objection. It's really easy. And I got one stage, thanks to Pam Faulkner. This was 16 years ago. And one stage with 400 educators sitting in the audience. And he went and presented to those 400 educators. And so we got the talk, we got the stage. And then at the end of his presentation, he gave away a free gift. The 7 ways to change the culture of your school, something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was because it was a long time ago. And out of those 400 people, 350 of them turned in their information and said, I want more details on your program. And so he had an in-person school program that we went back and we designed right shortly after that. And then as we followed up with those 350 leads, 70, 80, 90, somewhere in those leads ended up purchasing his $3,000 in-school program. He did 5 times the revenues from that one stage than he had done the last 12 months in his organization. And so I'm grateful because over the last 17 years, We've booked over 25,000 stages across the world. That was the very first stage out of 25,000. And here's what's even cooler. We're on a mission to help our students get on 1 million stages by 2027. And
Wow.
our students in the last 18 months have booked 47,000 stages in the last 18 months. So what took us 16 years to do, they've almost 2 times it in 18 months. And so we just got to see the power of the stage. You fast forward a few years and all of a sudden he no longer could do the one-on-one work with schools like they were doing. So they created their own digital products and we started selling their own digital products. And same thing, you get on a stage and his digital products would begin to sell, because then we raised the prices of the in-person stuff to higher. Then the digital products were down here. And so people who couldn't afford this would then end up buying this. But now you gave them 2 avenues, not just your, kind of one-on-one programs, but also your digital products. And we saw the masses be able to invest in that, where they couldn't invest in the higher ticketed stuff. So it was powerful. He's transforming schools, but along the way, we now have thousands of students all across the world that we are helping get their messages out in the niches, the industries, the places that they want to serve, just like we did with him and so many others.
I love it. No, that's awesome, Pete. Such a powerful story. It's such a great example of just one person getting on stage for an hour, changing one person's life, sharing it. Now you've been affected by that, and now you are helping so many thousands of people, get their message out. And so, it's very encouraging to hear. There's a lot of course creators and entrepreneurs out there that find it very hard. I was having this conversation last week with somebody. They're creating a lot of content. They've got a business, but they now want to start speaking on stage. And how do they do that? Where do they start? So it's very encouraging that even the smallest stages, talking to just a handful of people, can grow into something so amazing. Okay, well, this kind of segues into my next question. But what is, how did you get into online courses? Right, I think you touched on this. Eventually, you reach capacity as an entrepreneur to do the one-on-ones or small groups. You have to start building a digital product. So what was that for you? When was that sort of like moment where you're like, all right, I need to figure a way out to kind of scale this and reach more people?
Yeah, so our business is just 3.5, 4 years into it, this new version of our business, which is called Advance Your Reach, where we become a training and consulting on helping people understand how to use stages to grow their business. And about in year 1, I did a lot of one-on-one coaching. And I loved a lot of it. There's some of it I didn't love, but it didn't scale and I couldn't impact as many people. And so I realized that why can't I package my intellectual property, which we all have up here and in here. I said, why can't I package that? And I packaged that, and we started creating our digital course. And it was a no-brainer after I met the founder, Greg, that Thinkific was the platform for us. My team looked at a lot of platforms and we said, we just felt like Thinkific was the best fit for us and the right fit for us, and an incredible company, incredible organization. And so we did kind of in 2016 because of capacity. The beautiful thing is we've sold thousands of our digital course, but we can't sell thousands of one-on-one. So it came to a capacity thing, just like you mentioned, Rob.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a capacity thing. I think that's what a lot of people come into. What was some of the, I guess like some of the hurdles and challenges when you first started going down that road of building an online course? It's not easy, right? It is a business that you're building as well and creating a specific type of content. What were some of those challenges that you and your team came across?
Yeah, pretty simple, man. There was a couple of them. Number one, I was like, I'm not going to build something that I heard the industry rates on what people finish courses. And I was like, we're not going to do that. And so that was a big challenge for us, is how do we figure out an experience that we can take people through that they actually graduate? Mm-hmm. So that was the first challenge I wanted to overcome. And actually, that's not the first, that's the second. The first one was trying to create the granddaddy course of them all. And I'm not talking about 8,000 videos, but trying to take everything I have and put everything in there instead of a
Right.
simplified version. So actually the very first course we built just was way too much and way overload. Great content, but way overloaded. And what happens is so many people get stuck in building courses and try to do too much in that very first course. So those are the two big challenges. Is we try to put way too much in the very first course, and the second challenge was, how do we make sure and get people to complete this? Because if they don't complete it, transformation in their life doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, that's true. That does come up all the time. You know, how do we get more people to complete my courses? And so how have you then, you know, gone over that, right? That this is something a lot of course creators all think about. Like, how do I get my courses, my students across all my course and finish it, get the maximum value out of it?
Yeah, we just so happen to do occasionally 2 launches a year where we really launch our course all at one time. And then what we're able to do is create this experience through that. And so how do we overcome this? Number one is we create an experience. And so when people buy our course through one of our 2 launches, the first thing that they get is this baby right here. And it's literally kind of your dream stage, a motivational message on the back, and then the entire curriculum that's on Thinkific. A lot of the key curriculum is actually in physical form too, because people like to write.
Oh,
There's a gift in here. There's envelopes that basically say, it says open me, or don't open me till week 1, or don't open me till week 2. And so one of the first things that we do is this arrives in their mail, which creates this major intrigue, like, oh, I can't open this till week 1, week 2. The second thing that we do is we provide coaching every single week, real coaching. So the same, whatever, 8 modules, 7 modules, whatever content releases that week, we coach like crazy all week long around that. We tell our students we'll answer every one of their coaching questions. So what happens is it takes it from feeling like a group coaching, although it still is, to that one-on-one, because we make that promise. So that's really cool, is we do that coaching all 7 weeks. And then the last thing we do, and this is a really powerful thing that we do, is we figure out in week 7 who has graduated, who's finished 90%. And what we do is we send them a graduation certificate and an Amazon gift card and a letter congratulating them and telling them not to miss graduation, because we're going to be honoring them on the graduation ceremony. The people who haven't finished 90%, we actually send them a letter and say, hey, things might have gotten crazy, things might have gotten busy, but we're going to do graduation, and we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version, the most impactful things from the course that will really make the biggest impact on your business. So don't miss graduation. And then we take graduation really, really seriously. We give prizes, awards. And oh, by the way, throughout this whole time, we've got a very engaged Facebook group. It's silly how engaged our Facebook group is too. So by creating an experience, last year's graduating class, we saw like 35% of them graduate, which, you know, we want 100%, but you know what the industry standards are. 35 to 40% actually graduated with that finished 90% or above. So we really knocked it out of the park. That's that objection. The second objection you said is we've started teaching people how to get a miniature course done, how to get your first course done in less than 7 days. That's actually one of the bonuses that we give to our students is, how do you get your first course done in less than 7 days? And how we birthed that is, I had a really good friend and a client of ours, Hal Elrod, the author of The Miracle Morning. Any authors out there, you have a course in you. You absolutely do. And it's going to pay you more than what a book will pay you. And so Hal came to me and we were helping work on his business. And I said, Hal, why don't you have a digital course? He said, man, I've been trying to build it for 5 years. I just can't get it all done. It's really difficult. Like I've got to block off weeks and months. And I said, no, you don't. Let's get your first miniature course done, your first one done. And so I set out on a challenge with him to say, let's do it in a day. And we literally did it in a day. And then our tech team got it up, and we got it up and running quickly. And he has now sold thousands of that digital course. It's a miniature course, but what the miniature course did is it gave him the framework, a 7-day miniature course, like literally. It gave him the framework to now easily take this and build upon it to create his bigger course, the next version of it. But this one is helping people get wins. It's helping them get success. He got it done in a day. And I believe one of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to build that granddaddy course out of the gates, and they get overwhelmed, and then they either don't do it or they just put way too much in it, and then their students don't succeed. And when their students don't succeed, they don't continue to be customers of yours. And so that's how we overcame that. And so our students, we encourage them to build what we call a miniature course out of the gates and begin to sell that and get some wins with that. And then you can build upon that. So now Hal this year is building the next version and the up-leveled version of that, but that got him a lot of wins and a lot of success.
I love that. I love that. I think that's really important for a lot of course creators to hear. And before, I want to ask you a couple things about marketing and how you guys are now marketing your courses and getting people, actual students to pay for your courses. I want to ask you one last thing, is that just on building courses, how did you, and maybe Hal as well, like what's the process of picking out of the vast knowledge that you have as an entrepreneur, as a thought leader and an expert? How do you pick what you put in that miniature course?
Yeah, great question. So it's really one simple thing. We believe everybody has a proprietary process in them. Our proprietary process is the stage to scale process. It's how do you design a talk? How do you how do you find stages and get on stages, both digitally and physically? So stages. And then how do you scale past the stage with your products and services? So we call it story, stage, and scale. That's our proprietary process. That's how we've moved people from ordinary to extraordinary in their journey. All of you out there have this process. It's basically the journey that you figured out of how to run ads or how to build courses or how to change your mindset or how to build a funnel or how to do whatever it is that you do, how to do sales. You all have your key process. And figuring out that process takes a little bit of work. But once you figure out that process, and we got that process with Hal, then what you do is you go create simple modules with one handout around your process. And so once we got that with Hal's is Savers, Savers. So what we did with Hal is we created 6 modules that were like 15 to 20 minutes long. So the entire course can be consumed in 90 minutes. And there was a handout with each of the 6. And then we created like a bonus module, like something bonus to make it a 7-day. So we made it a 7-day, fast start, Miracle Morning Fast Start course is what it's called. And so once you get that process, my encouragement to you is then take that process and teach around that a little. And then what can evolve out of that is the granddaddy course, because you now have your process. So for example, one of the bonuses we give our students is how to design your course in 7 days. And so what did I do? I figured out the 4-step process that we took Hal through in order to do that. And that's what I taught on. And so that course can be consumed in like 55 minutes. People get through or how to design your first or next course in 7 days. They get through it in 55 minutes because all I did is figure out the process that got us from no course to a course in a day. I basically figured that out. So it's that process. And I believe every company has like their signature process. And usually that's where you get started, is your signature process. Under your signature process, not to be confusing, is all of these sub-processes that you can go teach on as well, but it's getting started with your signature process. So Hal's was Savers, and so therefore we built the course around his signature process, Savers. Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense. I mean, you just simplified it there. So hopefully everybody watching that you haven't launched your course yet, take note of that. Just really simplify it. I love that you guys are just doing. And again, you touched on that it's only 90 minutes. You're saying like it's only, a student can consume this in only. A lot of course creators will try to make their courses longer so that they can charge more, where in fact it's really the opposite. If you can provide the shortcut to whatever that process is that you're trying to achieve, then that's the value, isn't it?
Yep, it is. Completely, man. Completely.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. So, okay, now let's talk a little bit about marketing. And I invite anyone. We're going to be hanging out for another probably few minutes here. So if you have any questions for Pete, drop them in the comments. We would love to answer them for you. So yeah, drop them in the comments. Let's talk about marketing. I mean, I'm gonna share on stage here. One of the things that you're working on. So touch a little bit about how you're marketing your courses, and also what this new thing that the thing that's coming up that you guys are talking about. So I'll put this on screen.
Yeah, man. And so a couple of things is, listen, the number one way we market our courses, I think last year, I'm just going to take a guess here. Last year, we sold somewhere in between 1,800 to 2,000 courses. And the price was anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, depending on when it was happening. So a couple thousand courses. The number one way we marketed it is through stages. But don't think about, like, it doesn't have to be a physical stage. There are 8 different types of physical stages, and there's 8 different types of digital stages. 8 physical, 8 digital. That's 16 different types of stages you can be on. Over here on the digital, this is a stage right now. We're live. That's one of the 8 lives, webinars, podcasts, summits, blogs and blogs, online media, being built into other people's membership sites and courses. And then there's one I'm forgetting. And so there's 8 digital stages and 8 physical stages. And what happens is when you can begin to get your message on these, it will begin to generate business. So, Rob, I was on my very first stage I was ever on, only had a few dozen people on it, but 10 of them bought my digital course. The very first stage that Chandler Bolt, one of our students, was on, who only wanted to do online marketing. And then he realized he's limiting his reach by only doing online marketing. So he trusted our process, and he got on a stage of 27 people, and he sold 9 digital courses. And he thought, oh my gosh, I didn't feel salesy. That was so simple. And then he doubled down on it in 2018. And in 2018, he sold over $1 million worth of courses from 24 stages that year, and said, last year I did 0 from stages. And so the beautiful thing is these stages are the greatest way to us to really get your message out to the market. So my very first stage, few dozen people, 10 courses. And then, Rob, a stage I was just on in January of this year, 10X Growth Con, 20,000 people. I'm the last speaker. There's 30,000 people there throughout the time, but the day I spoke, there were 20,000 people. I was nervous as all get out. And that weekend, we saw 1,000 of our courses that are in Thinkific sell that weekend. It was a multiple 7-figure stage, 1,000 courses.
Wow.
In one day, in 1 hour. And so, listen, this thing right here that you see, Greg Smith, the founder and CEO of Thinkific, sat in this talk a couple of weeks ago at Todd Herman's event. And he's like, wow, all of our course creators need to know how to do this. Like, they've got to know how to do this. And I told him we have this masterclass. This masterclass we only do 1 time a year. This one right here only happens 1 time a year. And I'm excited about it because people like Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins are promoting for it. Hal Elrod, Michael Hyatt, so many people, Pat Flynn, so many people are promoting for this because of the fact of the power that it's had in their lives. These are all customers of ours. They're all clients of ours. And I believe all the course creators out there, if we can teach you how to do these 3 things well, get clarity on your message and the talk, get clear on the stages that exist and how to win them, and then get clear on how to attract customers into your courses after you're done with those stages, we believe that this can be one of the biggest needle movers in your business the next 12 months. And so this is what we're teaching, is all 3 of those things. And hey, listen, if you don't want to leave your home, Pat Flynn, a great podcaster, said that anytime somebody gets on his podcast, they call it the Pat Flynn effect because their business grows immediately. And I said that on a stage that I was recently on, and a guy came up to me and said, I want you to know what you said about Pat Flynn's podcast is true, because I sell franchises. I have a school fundraising company for schools. You know those fundraising companies that come in and give the cards and all of that?
Yep.
He has a freaking a franchise company. And he said, I got to get on Pat Flynn's podcast, and as a result, I sold 10 franchises in the weeks following and did $250,000 in franchise sales just from being on one podcast. And it's not just Pat Flynn's podcast. there's millions of online stages that exist. And so I love people doing 10, 12 physical stages. But last year, right here from my own home, with my kids 6 feet running around upstairs, I did 105 digital stages from this seat. And it generated multiple 7 figures in our business in course sales.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
so this training is dedicated to helping them understand to do those 3 things. Greg just sat in it and was like, I'm blown away. And I want my people to be able to sit in it as well, man. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is the reason why we're talking today and that you're here with us, because you and Greg were both at Todd Herman's event a couple of weeks ago in San Diego. And then Greg came back and he's like, Rob, you need to talk to Pete and get him and talking to our course creators, because this whole thing about stages is a game changer. So this is exciting. I think it also reframes what a stage is. A lot of people think that a stage is just a stage at a conference hall, where this is a stage. Like you said, there's so many different stages. There's 8 of them, like you said.
16,
so
8 and 8. So there's 16.
Yeah. So definitely, if you are building courses, if you're an entrepreneur, go check this out. This is a free masterclass. The link is in the comments. And I'm going to be sharing that as well in all the other pages. I think there's LinkedIn as well and YouTube. So go sign up for this. This is going to be a game changer for you. I mean, all of those amazing people. I just got an email from Sean. Everybody is talking about this masterclass right now. So very exciting for you. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to just see if there's any questions here, but I think we are good. Any final words, Pete, for all of the course creators out there building digital products?
Yeah, man. The last thing I would tell you is your message matters. Like, your message matters. Your message has the ability to have an impact on lots of people's lives, on their relationships, on their business, on their finances, on their health, whatever it is that you're taking to the world, your message matters. And I just believe stages are one of the most powerful ways to change people's lives and ultimately also bring customers into your world. And so I shared being on that 10X stage in January, and I stood up there. Nobody knew who I was in that stadium. I was the one speaker that nobody knew. My wife kept hearing around the stadium, like, who's the Pete Vargas? Who's Pete Vargas? Who's Pete Vargas? Who's Pete Vargas? Like, we heard that all weekend long. And I actually made a joke about it on stage, because at the end of my talk, I said, you saw all these 12 speakers on the speaker lineup, and you probably asked the same question I did. And I circled myself and I've had an arrow and said, who's this guy? You see, this guy was the only guy that didn't get a phone call to be on that stage. He used the system that will be a part of this master class. He used the system to win that stage. And he didn't have to be a well-known name. He was a best kept secret, but he knew how to win the stage. And a lot of people think that the greatest part of 10X was the 1,000 new customers that came into our business. That was amazing. And I don't want to make that small, but the most amazing part was this. The most amazing part was the fact that my dad was sitting in the audience for the very first time. He had never heard his son speak. And I got to talk about this story of forgiveness intertwined all through the entire presentation, and talk about my dad and I's relationship today. And they brought my dad because my dad had another son when he was 49 years old. And today he's the greatest father and the greatest grandfather that there is. And I got to tell that audience that only happened because of one person on a stage. My dad being who he is today is because of one person's message on a stage. And they put my dad up on the big screen. He was in tears. People were applauding him. The next morning at the airport, people were hugging him. And literally, not only did I get to honor my dad, over the next several weeks, many people told me that they went and they asked their kids or their parents for forgiveness, or they extended forgiveness to parents who had already asked. Yesterday, I got a message and said, Pete, I'm crying thinking about your message today because I heard you at 10X and I hated my dad. And after that, I went and I told him that I forgave him. And today I have the most freedom in my world because of that one thing that I did. Yeah, if you have forgiveness things in your life, go take care of them. That is an undertone of what I'm saying. But what is so important for you to hear is none of this chain reactions happens if my dad doesn't hear one person on a stage with their message. And now that person's message has grown significantly. He's no longer the best kept secret anymore. He's transforming education. And I believe all of you have that same power as you incorporate stages into your business. So that's what I would end with, Rob.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Pete, I love your story, you know that, and I think it's powerful. I think this goes beyond just business. I think, you know, getting on stages and sharing your story, like you said, that one guy has changed so many people's lives and the trajectory of, you know, where they're going. So I appreciate you today, man. Thank you so much. Everybody on the live, thank you as well. Make sure you go and register for Pete's masterclass. I'm going to share that again on all the comments. And Pete, appreciate your time. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you having me.
Take care.